Today's daf we're going to be learning is Gittin daf tepav. Today's daf is dedicated to Maggie and Rafi Sandler on the birth of a baby boy, Mazal Tov. Very excited. Maggie will therefore be on maternity leave. So if anybody has questions, please direct them to our website, to our email address, info@hadran.org.il, not to Maggie's personal WhatsApp, as people tend to, which is fine, but not while she's on maternity leave. God willing, she'll be returning to us sometime in the beginning of, after the holidays next year. Okay, also another dedication. Today's daf is dedicated in memory, dedicated by Helene Santo in memory of Marianne Santo on her 39th year at site. She dedicated her life to Na'amat, the state of Israel, and the Jewish people. We think of her always. We're going to get started now with our daf. We were in the middle of a complicated, I say complicated because there's many different opinions here. This machloket, I brought it up on the study guide today again. So in fact, we'll share the study guide and go through it. So we have here, let's go to the top of the sheet. Okay. We have a case where somebody says, our whole question that we've been dealing with in sugyot, when someone says, heilech, give this to somebody, give a gift, is it as if they already accepted it on their behalf or not? Again, just to review the basics. If I say zeche maneh leploni, which means accept rights for this person, then as soon as I give it to the messenger, it already theoretically belongs to that person I'm giving it to, even if they don't even know I'm giving it to them, because it's good for them. And therefore, also because they use the language, take this on their behalf, then it's theirs. But if I say heilech, and heilech, I mean, go pass this on. So if I say go pass this on, then maybe what I mean is go pass this on. You're instead of me, which means that if I wanted to change my mind at some point, I could. So you have it now. You can. Or does the word heilech, go bring this, literally mean also or include the meaning zeche, accept rights on their behalf, which means I can't change my mind anymore. That's the whole debate here. So now what the Gemara has been trying to do is to try to say, first we started to say maybe it's the debate between Rav and Shmuel yesterday. Then we said maybe it's a tannaitic debate even before then when we brought a tannaitic source, but then we rejected it. And then we ended with maybe it's another tannaitic debate that we see right here, which is this whole thing. Okay, again, let's just bring up the case where you say heilech maneh leploni, and then the person is no longer there, right? You send the messenger gets there and the person's dead. So the question is what happens? And then we also saw what happens if, in the meantime, the person who sent the gift also died. And then it could depend who died first. And then we have all different issues coming up. So the first thing we assumed, and this is the Gemara's attempt to try to say, this is all heilech kezachidami or not kezachidami. And we said we're talking about a healthy person who sends this gift. And then it's a question, did it work or did it not? Did you already acquire rights, which would mean it would go to the inheritors of the person who accepted the gift? Or do we say you didn't give him any rights, the messenger, and therefore it should come back to me because what I wanted isn't there, he's dead. Well, then bring it back to me. And that would be heilech lav kezachidam. In addition, just to complicate matters, we had a few other things, which is number one, is there this concept of mitzvah l'kayim divrei hamet, which means even though I pass this on to you, right? This is going to be this opinion of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, in the name of Rabbi Yaakov, in the name of Rabbi Meir, that it depends on who died first. If the other person died first, then it comes back to me because heilech is not kezachidami. But if the person, let's say I'm the one sending the message and I died first, then even though I didn't actually give it to the messenger to acquire, but there's a mitzvah l'kayim divrei hamet. Once I died, there's a mitzvah to fulfill the things I wanted to happen. So therefore, we give it to the inheritors of the person who I was sending it to. And then we had the opinion of Yachloku. We're not sure what to do, so we just split it 50-50. And then we had also the Shuda, right, where the messenger gets to decide what to do. Okay, that was the which we ended with in terms of also listening to Rabbanit Yael Shimoni's shiur about this whole concept of Shuda, which comes up in all sorts of other sugyot. Now we're going to reject this whole line of thinking because, again, the goal of the Gemara was to try to say there's a machloket tannaim about is heilech kezachidami or lav kezachidami, which, by the way, right, is obviously only in a case of a healthy person because the laws are very different when it comes to a dead person or someone who's on their deathbed. Okay, it happens that people died here, but they weren't necessarily on the sender wasn't necessarily on their deathbed at the time they said it. So now we're going to explain the entire machloket if they're actually, the person was on their deathbed, okay? And that it has nothing to do with heilech kazachei dami or lav kazachei dami. So starting 5 lines from the bottom. From the bottom of yesterday's daf. Nobody argues in the case of a healthy person. And again, it could be they do, but we're just basically saying we're going to suggest a different reading, which would then not get us to the point where we can say for sure there's a tannaitic debate about heilech kazachei dami or lav kazachei dami. So they really don't disagree in the case of a healthy person. They're talking about a person who's about to die. And then that's the person who gave the gift. Before we read this, it's important to remember that until now, we've basically been saying, if a shchiv meira, someone on their deathbed says something, it's kichtuvim uchimesurim dami. Even if they didn't do a kinyan, like an act of acquiring, it's as if they did a kinyan, because we want to make sure this person is calm on their deathbed. We want to tell you whatever you say, we'll do. But now we're going to see it's a machloket tannaim. Not everybody agrees. So there's a machloket between Rabbi Elazar and the rabbis about this. Ditna. So it says in the Mishna, someone who's sitting on their deathbed and starts saying, I want this son to get this, and I want this son to get that, and I want this son to get that. Maybe he includes his daughter also, right? He basically says, this is how I want my stuff divided. Rabbi Elazar Omer, it doesn't matter if the person's healthy or the person's not healthy, right? If they put their will together when they were still in a good shape, it doesn't make a difference. Things like land, basically means there could be liens on them, that's achrayut. Then there's 3 ways to purchase them. And basically, right, you can do a shtar, a document, you could do kesef, money, or you can do chazakah, which means if someone lives in that land for 3 years and nobody complains, then they acquire rights to that. We'll get to all that in Bava Batra. But anyway, that's the way you buy it. No other way, meaning words won't help you. Even if you're on your deathbed, it doesn't matter. You have to do an actual kinyan for it to actually take effect. What if they're movable property? You have to pull them. Okay? And if you don't pull it, that's a type of kinyan. It's not theirs. Okay, meaning the person who acquired it has to pull it. And the rabbis say no. All those things, whether it's land, whether it's movables, can all be acquired by speech. Meaning, if you're on your deathbed and you say, I want to give this to so-and-so, it's theirs. So now, let's go to the machloket that we saw and line everybody up. Before we get there, there's a little bit more to this Mishna. Amrulo, so the rabbis, in arguing with Rabbi Elazar, said to him, there was a woman, the mother of the sons of Rochel, they were called the sons of Rochel, that were sick, she was sick. And Amra, she said, I want to give this special, unique jewelry I have, this one item, to my daughter. It was worth 12 times 100 dinarim, a lot of money, 1,200 dinarim. V'meita, and then she died. And they did what she said. So they proved, here you see it. You must be wrong, Rabbi Elazar. To which he says to them, Amar lahen, the sons of Rochel are terrible people, and their mother should bury them, right? Meaning they should die while she's still, right? A curse to them while she's still alive. And basically, these are terrible people, and we don't learn anything from them. Okay, that's just an aside. So now let's go and line up the shitot that we learned. And again, this is just going to be a different suggestion. We don't know really what's the truth and what's not. So Bibari, so now again, we're not talking about a healthy person because heilech lav kazachei dami. Tanakama, who says, what is Tanakama says that it goes to the mishalech, it goes back to the person who sent it. So why does he say that? Well, Rabbi Elazar, because he said, so what that this person was on their deathbed? We hold like Rabbi Elazar. Doesn't matter what you say. If you didn't do an act of acquiring, it's nothing. Rabbi Natan and Rabbi Yaakov also held like him because they said it goes back to the Mishalech, and only if the Mishalech died, right? Well, it goes back to his heirs. So that's the same thing. Number one, Ki Rabbi Elazar. What did they add? Well, they added, even if I'm the one who sent the gift through a messenger, and if I die, it still goes back to me because they side on the other side of that debate. They say there's no such thing as we want to make sure that whatever a dead person wanted, whatever the person wanted when they were alive takes place when they die. We don't hold that way. And that's why it goes back to my heirs, because nothing really transpired here, because that's Rabbi Elazar. V'yesh omrim ki Rabbanan. Well, the Yesh omrim said it goes to the inheritors of the one who I was trying to give the gift to, because they hold like the rabbis who hold divrei shlimera kichtum milchim. We want to get the divrei shlimera to happen no matter what. We want to keep them calm when they're dead, whatever, when they're about to die, whatever they say goes. So therefore it goes. So the guy's not alive anymore, but it goes to his heirs. And then again, this all has nothing to do with heilech, because that's only a debate about if you're healthy. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, Shama Mishum Avimeil, ki Rabbi Elazar, right? Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, who said, now he said it all depends on who died first. If the receiver died first, then it goes back to the original guy. Why is that? Because divrei shlimera are not kichtuvim uchim esurim dam. But if I were to die first, then it goes to the heirs of the other guy. And why is that? Because miu hachademit, but in the case where he died, where the person sending the gift died first, amrina mitzvah l'kayim divrei hamet. We want to fulfill whatever the person wanted to do, what they said they wanted to do. So again, while it's not as if it's already been given, but still it's a mitzvah to do what he wanted. And that's why they say depends on who died first. Chachamim omrim yachloku, because mesapka lehu. Now in this case, they're not mesupak is holech kizachei dami or not. They're mesupak are divrei shlimera ktuvim uchim esurim. Do we hold like Rabbi Elazar or like the rabbis? And even if we hold like Rabbi Elazar, is there a mitzvah l'kayim divrei hamet, like the previous opinion or not? V'kanamru, and in Babylonia they said shuda adif. Again, we don't know what to do, so give it to the shaliach to decide. Okay, so that's basically how we understand all these opinions. The last one is Rabbi Shimon HaNasi. If you remember, what did Rabbi Shimon HaNasi say? Ma said there was a case va'amru, and they said it goes back to the yorshim of the person who sent it. So we'll go back to my heirs. So now, why does he say this? Ma he wanted to prove to us from a case. He wanted to say that, this is right, normally what do we say? We can better prove something from a case that happened, because everyone has all sorts of opinions in theory, but we don't always act on those opinions. But if there was an actual case that happened, that's the best proof. So he tries to bring a case to prove it must be, we hold like this Rabbi Natan and Rabbi Yaakov, okay, who said it goes back to the original person, because again, according to this, Rabbi Elazar, right, we hold like Rabbi Elazar that we don't say if and therefore it goes back to their heirs. Now they're going to have a few questions about Rabbi Shimon HaNasi. Interesting questions. The first one is more historic. Ibailahu, Rabbi Shimon HaNasi Nasihu, Mishmei de Nasi Kamar. Was he a Nasi, or was he saying it in the name of the Nasi, and that's why? Okay, just 1 second. I want to see one thing. Right. Okay. So now the question is, 1 second. Right. Okay. So the question is, we don't really know this Rabbi Shimon HaNasi. So was he really a Nasi, or did he say the name of the Nasi, and that's why he gets the name Rabbi Shimon HaNasi? So the Gemara answers, Tashma. Let's learn it from here. Da'amar Rabbi Yosef halakha ke Rabbi Shimon HaNasi. Rabbi Yosef says we paskin like Rabbi Shimon HaNasi. So that sounds like he really was the Nasi. To which the Gemara says that didn't help us at all. We still don't understand. Was he a Nasi, or did he say in the name of the Nasi? Because it could be still, Rabbi Yosef is saying, we hold like Rabbi Shimon who said it in the name of the Nasi. So basically that didn't help us. Teku. And therefore they end with, we don't really know. Was Rabbi Shimon a Nasi, or was he just called HaNasi because he said it in the name of the Nasi? Gufa. Now we're going to go, but since we already mentioned this, we're going to try to understand something here. We're going to have a bit of a problem. Amar Rav Yosef halakha ke Rabbi Shimon HaNasi. So we quoted this before just to figure out was Rabbi Shimon a Nasi or not. But let's try to understand his psak. He holds like Rabbi Shimon HaNasi, which is a bit of a problem. Okay, now let's pull up our chart and then you'll see why it's a problem. According to the way we just explained it, if he holds like this opinion of Rabbi Yaakov, right, that it goes to your Sheh HaMeshalech, what did we say here? He holds like Rabbi Elazar, and he holds Lo Omrim Mitzvah L'Kayim Divrei Hamet. But don't we all know, and you all knew this before today, that but we hold that we don't hold like Rabbi Elazar in this case. We hold like the rabbis. So how can we possibly say that we hold Rabbi Yosef Paskin like Rabbi Shimon HaNasi, who holds like Rabbi Yaakov and Rabbi Natan, who hold, right? Am I saying the names right? Rabbi Yaakov and, sorry, I don't see the whole chart here. Yeah, Rabbi Natan and Rabbi Yaakov, who hold that mitzvah, right? That Rabbi Elazar is right, that we don't say So what did they answer? Now, this is why I was very careful to say, when we brought up the suggestion, it was just a suggestion. So, and it was to reject, or at least say, we can't be sure that the machloket tannaim is heilech kazachidami or not. So basically, what did they say? Rav Yosef, Mokel Abibari, Rav Yosef, who paskins like Rabbi Shimon HaNasi, will have to say that we don't accept the second reading. We actually accept the first reading. And the psak that he is holding, heilech lav kazachidami. Right? If you say heilech, you're not zoche, and that's why it goes back to my heirs who sent the gift. However, what does he say? Ha liyor shema shalech kamar. He says the situation was where it went back to my heirs. That means I must have died. And I must have died. If I die, why does it go back to me? Because number one, I wasn't mizakeh, the messenger, on your behalf. Let's say the gift was going to you. And number two, we don't say mitzvah l'keim divrei hamet, because remember, the people who said heilech lav kazachidami and mitzvah l'keim divrei hamet said it would go to the heirs of the one who received it. So another problem with this psak of Rav Yosef, it's very nice to say, okay, it doesn't hold like Rabbi Elazar and he doesn't read the right hand this way. But then to say that he holds heilech lav kazachidami and it's not a mitzvah l'keim divrei hamet, v'ha kaimalan mitzvah l'keim divrei hamet. But, right, if he says lior sham shalech, it was clearly talking about a case where I died. And in the case where I die, it should be that we should do what I wanted, which is give it to the next person, right? So give it to who I wanted to give it to and do my last wishes. So today, in order to fix this, they say change the wording of Rabbi Shimon HaNasi. And the maaseh happened, v'yachzeru l'meshaleach. So the case must have been not where they were yorshim, not where they were heirs, not where I died. It must be only when I'm still alive. Because if I really died, then there would be a mitzvah to do what I said. And therefore, it goes back to me only, and he didn't say Yorshem Shalech. So to understand the psak of Rav Yosef, we tried to understand them through the second reading. That doesn't work. So we have to say Rav Yosef clearly held by the first reading, which then would say, by the way, according to him, it was a machloket. Halech kazachidami or lav kazachidami. But it can't be Yorshem Shalech, because then there would be this added issue of mitzvah l'keim divrei hamet, which we know we hold like. So they're basically saying it doesn't make sense that Rav Yosef goes against all these mainstream psak halachas. And therefore, it must be, we have to change what he said. And as number one, he must have gone by the earlier understanding. It was a healthy person. And number two, it must be that it really said l'mishalech and not liyorcham mishalech. And with that, Hadran alacha mevi kama. And we're moving on to the next chapter. Now, why is it called a mevi kama? A mevi kama means the mevi, the first one. Our next chapter starts off with the word hamevi, just like the previous chapter. We had this, if you remember, in Yevamot. There was Haisha Zuta and Haisha Rabba, right? Because they tried to distinguish. This one, they distinguished Kama and Batra, first and last. So this is the last, or the second in our case, but we call it last. The last chapter that's going to be named Hamevi, and it's called Hamevi Batra. Hamevi get me Medinat Hayam. It's going to sound just like the previous chapter. We start with one who's bringing a get from abroad, which we already know they have to say, B'fanai nechtam, B'fanai nechtam. And now we're going to have a whole slew of cases, almost all of them are going to be disqualified, where the get is going to be totally disqualified because the shaliach, the messenger, didn't say it properly. Okay, what did he say wrong? We'll see right now. Amar B'fanai nechtav, avalo B'fanai nechtam. He says, listen, it was written before me, but I wasn't there with the signature. I don't know anything about the signatures. Or B'fanai nechtam, avalo B'fanai nechtav. Or I can vouch that the signatures, this was signed in front of me, but I don't know anything about it being written. B'fanai nechtav kulo, b'fanai nechtam chetzio. What if it was entirely written in front of me, but only part of it was signed in front of me? Okay, part of it signed meaning one witness rather than the other witness. There's always two witnesses who sign. B'fanai nechtav chetzio. Part of it was written in front of me. U'b'fanai nechtam kulo. But I actually saw both signatures being signed. Pasul. All these cases are no good. We're going to have to figure out what does it mean part of it was written in front of me. Didn't we learn already? You don't have to see the whole thing being written, just part of it. And we're going to see that not the whole thing needs to be written lishma. So we'll get back to that. What if, now here there's going to be a whole debate in tomorrow's daf about what the scenario is. Were these two messengers bringing the get, or was one a messenger and one just kind of happened to be there also, but he wasn't a messenger? Okay, what's the difference? Well, you could say that if you're not the messenger, maybe the rabbis said we believe the messenger when he brings the get and says because he's the one who knows, like, I'm the messenger. He takes it very seriously, and even though normally we need two witnesses, in this case we'll allow one. But what if it's some random person who just says, oh yeah, I happened to see it? Maybe they weren't so careful to check all the details because they didn't feel the responsibility on their heads. So there's a debate about whether these two were both messengers or one was a messenger and one was just another person. So what's the case? One said, I could vouch for the writing. And the other one said, I can vouch for the signature. So this also is pasul. This also doesn't work. You need one person who says the entire thing. What if we have three people? Two said it was written in front of us, and one said it was signed in front of me. Also, pasul, it doesn't work. Rabbi Yehuda machshir. Rabbi Yehuda specifically says this case works. We're going to get to all this later in the Gemara, not today. Today we're going to deal with the first half of the Mishnah. But if it's the reverse, the one person said it was written in front of me, the shaliach, presumably, the messenger, and then two people vouched for the signatures, right? They said, since remember, the whole problem is always we're worried that people will think kiyum shtara could be with one. Well, in this case, we're doing it with two. In that case, if you have two other witnesses about the signatures, actually that will work. That's kasher. Okay, that's the only case that really fully works according to all the opinions. So we're going to start dealing with these cases one by one. The first thing is, why do you even need the first line of the Mishnah? It says, "Hamevi get medinat hayam." You say b'fanai nechtav v'lo b'fanai nechtam, or b'fanai nechtam lo b'fanai nechtav. It's pasul. Obviously, it's pasul. What did the first Mishnah tell us? Right? The Gemara is going to say, "Hatu lamali." What do you need that first line for? The first two cases. Hatanalei chadazimna. We already learned this in the first Mishnah. What did it say? Hamevi get medinat hayam. So So therefore, it says there, if you bring a get from abroad, you must say b'fanai nechtav, b'fanai nechtam, which would then assume, if you didn't, the get is no good. Well, not necessarily, because the language is very different. If it was from there, you would have thought you need to say it. Need is different than it's disqualified. Need means this is what's expected, but if you didn't, maybe it's okay. Ilo amal kashil. This is what we always say, lechatchila b'diavad. Ideally, that's what the shaliach is supposed to say. Remember, why is he saying it? To protect the woman. So you might say, well, if he didn't say it though, we'll let the get go through anyway. And hopefully, right now, this is the problem. Hopefully the husband won't come and start claiming the get's no good. Then we're going to be really in trouble, and the woman's going to already maybe have kids with her new husband, have gotten married based on this get, have children, and then he'll claim their mamzerim. So, which is why our Mishnah comes in and says, Kamash Malan, it comes to teach you, no, that is not the case. We don't let her get married based on this get. We have to start all over again, right? Get a new get people to, or someone to vouch for it. It's not going to work. If the shaliach can't say the whole declaration, we don't allow this get at all. And that's really to prevent the mamzerim situation, right? So again, you might have thought, ideally, we should do this to protect her, but if we didn't, she could still go ahead and get married. And the Mishnah teaches us, no. It's a totally disqualified get. So now we're going to start first, because this is a little bit of an easier sugya. I guess that's what I started with, even though it's a little out of order. But half of it was written in front of me, the messenger says, and part of it, and the signatures I saw completely. So now they ask, I told you we'd ask this, which half? If you're going to say the first half, okay, the first half is where you have the names and the date. That's the most important part. Well, Hama Rabbi Elazar, all you need is the first line to be written in the Shema. After that, you don't even need the rest. So why would he need to say, if he saw the first half, obviously that's totally fine. So therefore the Gemara answers, Rav Ashi, chetzio acharon. What we mean is, if you say, I saw the last half being written in the Shema, that's not enough, because you really need to be seeing the first half. So half doesn't mean an arbitrary half. Half means the second half. This is going to take us basically till the end of the daf. There's part of the sugya I have to say is a little bit complicated to understand. There's going to be a question raised against one of the opinions that's not so clear exactly what the question is, and then we'll have an answer, which because the question isn't so clear, the answer is going to be not so clear. So you might walk out with a little lack of clarity here. I will try my best to explain it as best as I understand it, but it is a little bit complicated. So what we're going to do here is, it's a bit of a strange sugyot also. The Mishna says, if one person saw the whole signing, but then only saw the whole writing, only half the signing they can vouch for, which means basically one witness. They could say one witness, b'fanai nechtam. The other witness, it sounds like the simple reading is nobody knows anything about the other witness, right? He doesn't say anything. Nobody else says anything. It's disqualified. But now both Rav Chisda and then Rava and then Rav Ashi are each going to bring another case where we do know something about the second signature and it's still going to be disqualified. And each one argues with the previous. Okay, so Rav Chisda is going to come. Rav is going to disagree with him, bring his own chiddush. Rav Ashi is going to disagree with him and bring his own chiddush. And then what we're going to do is, just so you get the structure right, we're then going to question Rav Chisda from the Mishnah. That's going to be the part that's the hard thing to understand, and then answer it. Okay? But remember, none of them are saying this is the exact case of the Mishnah, it seems like, although maybe they are. That's also what's not so complicated. Perhaps they're explaining the Mishnah. Perhaps they're adding, in addition to the case of the Mishnah where we know nothing about the second witness, in addition, if we know something about it, it still might be disqualified. And then we're going to have a debate about which case will be disqualified. So also I charted it to make it easier because it's a little bit complicated. So let's pull it up. And here, okay, on the second side of the sheet, here's the chart. Okay, so the first witness, he already said b'fanai nechtam. The question is, what happens with the second witness? I'm Rav Chisda. Afilu shnayim idim chatimat yad sheni pasul. So comes our messenger and he says, b'fanai nechtav, the whole thing. B'fanai nechtam, I watched the first witness sign. I didn't see anything about the second witness, but two witnesses come along and vouch for the signature of the second one. So in that case, we should be okay because we have, right, that's kiyum shtara. So Rav Chisda says, this is still pasul, my timer, for an interesting reason. O kulo b'kiyum aget, o kulo b'takana chachamim. You have to take one track. Either you're using kiyum shtarot, which we learned already. If somebody can't say b'fanai nechtam for whatever reason, he didn't see, or he can't speak, right, as we talked about already, then we can go the track of kiyum shtar. But you can't do both. Either you're going to do b'fanai nechtam, which is what the rabbis instituted works, even though theoretically you usually need two witnesses, or you can use witnesses, but you can't do a combination of, oh, I'll vouch for, we have two witnesses vouching for one signature and we have the messenger vouching for the other. You can't combine those things. To which, matkifla Rava, this also, by the way, is a little complicated to understand. We'll go with Rashi, even though I think there's difficulty in Rashi's commentary, but we'll go with Rashi anyway. Matkifla Rava. Rava says, what are you talking about? Mi kamidi, di ilu amar chad kashel, hashdi kachrei pasul. What if the first witness came along and said, the messenger came along and said, b'fanai nechtam, okay? It was written in front of me, and one witness signed in front of me, and the second witness, I can vouch for his signature, okay? I recognize the signature. I didn't see him signed, I recognize his signature. According to Rashi, this actually works. Where does he get it from? If you remember that sugyot where we were comparing the two, and will you maybe confuse this with kiyum shtarit if we allow one witness, the whole thing of heilech hadran bisuin, deathbed and gimel? So there we said, oh, there it says b'fanai, and there you say yadinan, and you don't say the same language, so no one's going to confuse it. And then came the retort and the answer, and they said, what do you mean? If he had said yadinan, it would work. The way they mean that is not just a linguistic thing, but if you say, I know this witness's signature, meaning if the guy who says b'fanai nechtam, instead of saying b'fanai nechtam, says I know his signature, I can vouch for his signature, that's valid also. Now, not everybody agrees with this reading of Rashi, but the sugyot makes more sense if you accept Rashi on this point. So let's just accept Rashi on this point for now. And we're going to say the following. So if I'm the messenger and I say b'fanai nechtam, part one of the witnesses signed in front of me, and the other one, I know his signature, it will work. So how could Rav Chisda possibly say if one works to verify the signature of the second witness? Of course, if I have two kosher witnesses who come and say, we vouch for that signature, of course it'll work. That's way better than one. So he says, I don't accept your reading. I think it would work in that case. If there were actually two witnesses on this verifying the signature of the second person, then it would work. And I don't care that we've combined takanat chachamim and kiyum shtar. Ela amar Rav. So Rava says, though, but he offers a different extra case here that won't work. Who, again, we're talking all about the second one. The first witness we're already covered. So I saw the first witness sign, the messenger said. Now, what happens about the second one? What if, about the second one, I come along and I say, okay, the first one, I saw him sign. The second one, what happened? Me and someone else vouch for the second signature. Not that I saw him sign, but we both do kiyum shtar. Now, Rav already said kiyum shtar is not a problem, but it has to be two other witnesses. It can't be me and someone else. Why? My taima. We might confuse this with regular ratification of documents. Now it becomes a mathematical equation. These two witnesses, okay, if I vouched for one of them, so I vouched already for 50%, and then me and someone else come to vouch for the other witness. So that means altogether, I vouched for 3/4 of the testimony, 75%, because the testimony of these two witnesses, the acceptance of them is based on 75% my testimony, 25% of some other witness, because I'm believed to say b'fanai nechtam about the first signature, 100%. So that gives me 50% because I've got one witness. The other splits in half. So altogether, I vouch for 75%. Now, while theoretically this could work in this case, and kind of like what Rava said before, if I just said it myself, it would be okay. So the fact that we add another witness, why should that make it any worse? But he says we're worried that in a parallel case in ratification of documents, there will be a parallel case. We don't ever have another case where I could say b'fanai nechtam and do that. But we do have a case where I could theoretically vouch for 75% and it's not accepted. And we're worried that if we allow it here, we'll allow it there. What would be the case? I can actually come, and we'll see this in a minute. I can come and say, this is my signature and I'm verifying it by myself. If there's a regular shtar and I come, it's like when you go to the bank, right? I sign my name and I see, oh, look, matches my signature. So I can vouch for my own signature. So let's say I'm signed on with someone else on the document. And now we go to ratify the document, right? This question of the veracity of the witnesses. I come forward and I say, this is my signature. And then I come forward with another witness and say, and I can vouch for the second signature as well. Now, in that case, we won't accept my testimony because I vouch for 75% of the document. And we need two witnesses, right? It doesn't work that way. It won't work in that case. So because it could theoretically work here, but we don't allow it because we don't want people to think that I can actually verify 75% of a document in a regular case. So while it might work here because of the b'fanai nechtam takana, it shouldn't work in other cases, and therefore we don't allow it here. So that's the way Rava explains why it would be disqualified. So again, just to review, I think it's really important because at least I found when I was preparing it, it was a little bit confusing. I'm going to see the opinions here. What happened with the second witness? According to Rav Chisda, it won't work even if two witnesses come and verify the second one. According to Rava, that would work. It won't work if the shaliach himself testifies about the signature of the second guy with someone else. But Rav Ashi doesn't like this either. Matkifla Rav Ashi, mi kamidi di ilu masikle iu lekuli dibura kasher. Basically goes back to Rava's question on Rav Chisda and says, it comes out an absurdity here. If the person who brings the messenger, let's say I'm the messenger, and I say, b'fanai nechtam, one witness, and then I say, and I can vouch for the second witness, it works. So now that I came to vouch for the second witness with someone else, it's actually going to be worse than if it was just me? That's ridiculous. So Rav Ashi says, it can't be, you're right. I'm going to tell you a different kiddush. Ela amar Rav Ashi. I told you we get back to this. If I'm the messenger, and I can say b'fanai nechtam about the first witness, I saw him sign before me. The second signature is my signature, so I can say I'm going to verify my signature right now. So that also won't work. Why? And this goes back to what Rav Chisda said. My taima o kulo b'kiyuma get o kulo b'takana chachamim. If I'm going to be the one verifying the whole thing, I can't do a split and say, I'm going to verify, by Takanach Chachamim, the first signature, and say, B'fanai nechtam, and I'm going to verify the second signature by laws of verification. I can't do such a thing, says Rav Ashi. And with that, we end. So we have these three chidushim about what the case is with the second witness. And again, each one's trying to say, again, it's unclear. Are they trying to explain the Mishnah? Possibly they are. Or are they trying to say, in addition to the Mishnah, where there's no witness at all for the second, there's no testimony at all about the second signature. Even if there is some sort of testimony, again, three options of what kind of testimony, it won't work. So now the Gemara is going to bring the Mishnah as a question against Rav Chisda. And this is the part that I found hard to fully understand. So now they say, that's exactly what we've been discussing. What happens with the other half? Is there nothing known about it? Is there something known about it? Now, we assumed until now that there was nothing known about the second witness. And each of these rabbis just said, in addition, if we did know something, it would still be bad, depending on, right? It still wouldn't work depending on who you are and what you said. Before we move on, the biggest chidush is obviously Rav Chisda, because Rav Chisda says, even if you have two legitimate witnesses testifying about the second signature, it's still not going to work. That's what we call the biggest chidush, okay? And that's what this question on Rav Chisda is going to really be based on. But it's a little more complicated than that. If we're going to understand the Mishnah the way we did, which is the simple reading of the Mishnah is there's no one who testifies at all about the second signature. Later in the Mishnah, it brings this case, which we learned. One said, I saw it signed, and one said, I saw it written, right? We basically have full testimony on the writing and full testimony on the signing, and yet it's still pasul, disqualified. So chetzio mebaya. So our case where, okay, it happens to be the same person, but still that same person is only testifying about 1.5. If when we have a complete two, right, ktiva and chatima completely, it works. It doesn't work. Obviously, if we have 1.5, it's also clearly not going to work. So our whole case is unnecessary, which means what? In other words, if there was nothing known about the second signature and it was really 1.5 and we're totally missing testimony about the second signature, you wouldn't even need to say that case in the Mishnah. Therefore, here comes the big therefore. Therefore, it must be teaching you there was something known about it. And then they're going to just assume that it's the least, we're going to go a little bit more and not extreme to get to Rav Chisda, who says if there was complete testimony about those two witnesses. So therefore, they're going to say, Ella, oke de Rava, oke de Rav Ashi, la fukemi de Rav Chisda. The simple reading of our Mishnah, again, this is based on, the simple reading of our Mishnah is that it can't possibly be, we don't know anything about that witness, because then it would be a totally unnecessary case and the Mishnah wouldn't need to mention it. Therefore, it must be there's something known about the second witness, but then we're going to go with the lesser chidushim, because to go so far as to say Rav Chisda is already, that's a huge jump. Okay, that's the assumption of this question, or the presumption of this question. To which Rav Chisda is going to knock out, or the Gemara is going to put words in his mouth, but Amar Lecha Rav Chisda, he's going to basically knock out their question and say, I think your question's out of line, because I don't think that they said you can't read the Mishnah as being a case where there was no witness at all. There was no testimony at all about the second witness. He said, that's not true. Of course you could read the Mishnah that way. Right? They said it's unnecessary. He's going to say, yeah, there's lots of times the Mishnah says unnecessary things, and there's a certain logic about it. Litamech, according to what you're saying, and they're going to reject the question by saying, there's another thing in the Mishnah that makes no sense according to your theory, which is, b'fanai nechtav avalo b'fanai nechtam lamali. You also don't need to bring the case of if he said it was signed it was written in front of me, but not signed in front of me, or the reverse. That those whole cases are totally unnecessary. Ella, why is that? Because if you say our case, b'fanai nechtav kulo and b'fanai nechtam chetzio, it doesn't work. If knowing half the signatures doesn't work, then obviously knowing none of the signatures doesn't work either. So it's a totally unnecessary case. Ella lo zo af zo katan. The structure of the Mishnah is, we're going to first tell you a lesser unique case, right? Like only the signatures or not at all the signatures. And then we're going to tell you, even if you have half the signatures, it still doesn't work. So then we're going to say it could be, nothing about the other signature. And right. So now, since what they're basically doing is they're taking that first case. Okay. And I'll pull it up on the chart also so you can see, I wrote this out to make it more clear. The first case they're talking about is that the whole sentence b'fanai nechtav avalo b'fanai nechtam pasul is irrelevant, unnecessary, because you already have b'fanai nechtam half. So obviously, if you can't say b'fanai nechtam at all, it's going to be disqualified. So they bring the lesser critical, right? The lesser chiddush, and then they bring another case. And then, therefore, also the whole question was, what about our case? Our case isn't necessary because of the other case. So hachanami lo zo afso katan. If you compare our case to the later case of one said b'fanai nechtam and one said b'fanai nechtam, one said it was written, one said it was signed, and we're going to disqualify it, in which case you definitely don't even need our case. Again, our case, it's just going up a level, right? Our case is a more simple case, and then they get even more, right? Even more. Even if you have complete, it's still going to be disqualified because it's two different people. So the whole theory is that your whole question was unbased. Now, there's no basis for your question, which then brings us to what? So that means our case in the Mishna could really be nobody knows anything about the second witness, which then, now this is the tricky part, which then means that when Rav Chisda, Rava and Rav Ashi all offer some other case, we don't care if Rav Chisda goes so far, because we're not saying that's what the Mishnah means. I think what really the premise of the question is, if that's what the Mishnah means, and it means something so far-reaching, like even two witnesses would be disqualified, it should have said so. And since it didn't, right, we're going to take the more, right, the less crazy case, the thing that seems more logical, which could be Rava or Rav Ashi. But once you say the Mishnah is just talking about a basic case, and each of these rabbis is just adding on, in addition, by the way, this wouldn't work either, then you can go as far as Rav Chisda, because you're not trying to read the Mishnah in that way. Okay? That's what we have. Now we're going to move on to the easier part of the end of today's daf, which is if we're talking about combining half a testimony this way, half a testimony that way, right? And we're basically saying it doesn't work, or some of the cases maybe do work, but where one witness is verified in this way and one is verified in a different way. So now they get into two other cases where we're going to try to combine two different types of things, totally different areas. One is going to be mechitza when it comes to domains on Shabbat. Let's go back to Shabbat and Eruvin, where we talked about if you have a 10 tefachim high wall, that creates its own unique domain, then you can carry within it. So again, you need some other criteria, but let's just go with the 10 tefachim. That's what's important right now, the 10 tefachim wall. So Amar Rav Chisda, gidud chamisha mechitza chamisha. What if you dug down? It's a nice picture in the Koran if you have it. You dug down 5 tefachim and you built a wall 10 tefachim. Now, if you dig down, it creates a type of wall, but it's not really a wall. And then you have a wall that goes up 5 tefachim. So you have altogether something that looks like a wall that's 10 tefachim. Does that count as a mechitza? Ein mitzdarfim, according to Rav Chisda. It either has to be entirely a wall or entirely dug down. It can't be one or what combines the two. But Darash Ramar says this works. And Hilchot Mitzdarfim, we actually hold that it works. Next question. By Ilfa, here's a question. Yadayim torot l'chatzaim or ein torot l'chatzaim? When you wash your hands, okay, we're going to talk about what it means, but netilat yadayim, like we know, to purify your hands, does this work in parts or not? Now, what does he even mean? We don't know. We're going to have a whole question here. The measure of water you need is a quarter of a loaf. The question is, maybe his question is, can two of us share the quarter loaf? They say, definitely that's not the question, because Hatnan, it's an explicit Mishnah. Therefore, wouldn't ask a question that's an explicit Mishnah. From a revi'it of wine, I'm sorry, I always say wine. A revi'it of water, you can wash for one person and even for two. So we know that. Ilfa is definitely not asking that question. Maybe it means you wash one hand and then you take a break and then you wash the other. Even that we have a Mishnah for. It's not exactly the same. But one I wash by pouring water on it. The other one I put into a river. I can purify my hands in that way. And that's kind of a separation between the two because I'm doing it in two different ways, in which case it should work even if I wash one and then later I wash the other. Yadav to'orot, it says in that Mishnah, it works. So maybe this. Maybe you washed only part of my hand. And then I wash the other part of my hand. Could that work? Even that though, when I wash part of my hand, I haven't done anything. So you can't say half which equals 0 plus another half which equals 0 is going to equal up to a whole. It doesn't work that way. So they say, well, maybe it would work in this case. If you have some droplets still on your hand on the first half when you wash the second half, and then maybe we'll combine them. Problem with this is, and you might remember, but they ask a question about a drink that's tofach, okay, and we'll talk about what this means, and they're going to basically say this doesn't work either. So we'll get back to this tomorrow. We'll finish this up. Quick review of our daf. We started with the whole is heilech kizachei dami or lav kizachei dami mechilek tannaim. We tried to read the Mishna, the Bright in that way. We rejected it. We read it in a different way, even though maybe it is still that. And then we saw the Pesach of Rav Yosef. We tried to figure that out. We were trying to figure out as Rav Shimon and Nasi. Did he just quote the Nasi? Then we moved on to this next Mishna about all sorts of cases where the declaration made by the shaliach was not complete. And we saw in almost all the cases it doesn't work, right? And then we saw what does it mean? Nichtav chetzio. We said it must be the second part because the first part would have been enough. And then we dealt a lot with this nichtam chetzio. And then what happens with the second signature, right? The simple reading was, there is nothing about the second signature, but Rav Chisda, Rava and Rav Ashi each offered interpretations that explained we're talking about a case where there was something known, or either they're reading the Mishna or they're just adding an extra case, that even this would be disqualified. And then there was just a debate about what exactly is known about the second witness that would disqualify or not. And then from there, we got to all sorts of other issues of combining two different things. Can they be combined? Can they not, for other halachic issues? That will finish for today. Have a great day, everyone.